Barev.
Barev. Welcome.
Welcome to Jazve Talks.
It's the podcast where
we spill the coffee, not the tea.
I'm Luz.
I'm Son.
And I am an Armenian American journalist.
And I'm activist, feminist from Sevan.
We live together with our cat Nushik.
And historians may call us roommates.
Why are you?
And Armenian taxi cab drivers call us sisters and...
Mom and daughter.
That happened once before,
I'm the
too.
mom.
I'm the daughter.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Let's start with the name. Why Jazve Talks?
Why Jazve Talks?
What is Jazve?
Jazve is the spot where you make coffee, and it's largely accepted in Eastern cultures and mostly in our neighboring countries, such as Iran, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Georgia. We surrounded with 4 countries and 2 or 3 of them hate us. Just a little. Before astrology, there was reading coffee cup, and our grandmas or our aunts would love to do that and look into cup and see what is future. Oh, I see there that you have a horse.
Oh. So originally we were thinking that this would be called Kitchen Talks.
Խոհանոցային զրույցներ in Armenian.
But it turns out that a lot of people already have podcasts called Kitchen Talks. But why did we specifically want kitchen? Not to say, woman, go to the kitchen, make me a sandwich. But, as you said,
Խոհանոց means place to reflect.
We could see our moms, our grandmothers, our aunts
talking, drinking coffee, gossiping, and also sharing very valuable pieces of information.
Mom lore, grandma lore. And that's where you really got to understand where you come from, because all of a sudden you had to run over and listen to what they're about to say. These conversations could typically only happen in the kitchen for these women in our lives, because coming from patriarchal societies, a lot of these conversations were not safe to have in front of men and continue still to be like that. We want to take that concept of the kitchen in the way that we can create this safe space and highlight the work, the creative, intellectual ideas that women in Armenia have, queer people, other marginalized people who don't often, if at all, get this kind of spotlight. For the first episode, we thought it would be nice to introduce ourselves, what are we doing in Armenia, and what is our connection to being Armenian. Do you want to start, since you were actually born here?
I was born in a little town named Sevan, near Sevan Lake, and I go back and forth to Russia to find stable job or to be with my parents, but I met major xenophobia there. It was hard to find apartment for rent or job if you're not Russian, if you don't have Russian surname or Russian citizenship. If you don't look Slavic enough, then they just gonna drop the call. There was COVID, and then the war started. I felt very isolated. I would check the news, will be online in Twitter all the time, and just monitoring it as I was newsroom, but nobody will understand me because I was also surrounded by Russians. I just decided to come here where I belong and continue what I was doing and just try to stay here with my friends, because I see how much everyone need support, and everyone need to be reminded that they're worth of living, that we need to live for this country to thrive.
Yeah, I think for me, growing up in the US, in the greater Boston area, yes, there is a huge diaspora in Watertown. If you know, you know. But for some reason, I just never really felt like I was a part of that, considering my family came from Georgia. I don't know what messaging I was receiving, but I felt like I need to push my Armenianness away, having mostly my mom present who's Russian, and somehow convince everyone that I'm Russian, even though I have the most Armenian sounding last name. Even here, people think sometimes taxi drivers think I'm lying when I say I don't know how to speak Armenian. They're just like, you're messing with me. And then it's like, how do you speak Russian though? And you're from the US? Like, what? But it wasn't until 2020 when I was in Paris doing grad school. And yes, it was COVID, lockdown, and my teachers are calling, checking in on me, asking, are you okay because of the lockdown? But for me, what I really wanted to be asked is, are you okay? There's a war happening between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This is the moment that I really call the blood calling, which is...
Aryan Kanch.
I just can't explain what it was, because for years I had been kind of pushing this away and feeling like, well, even though I had come to Armenia, I was thinking, well, I haven't grown up here and I don't speak the language, so who am I to claim this? But it kind of gets to the point where you're thinking, what do I stand for if I have this degree in human rights and journalism? It's not France that needs my skills. It's not the US. It's really Armenia. And maybe it was a bit of Delulu thinking coming here. And I know a lot of people were like, maybe thinking I lost my mind a little bit. Maybe I did. But it was really complicated in the beginning because I was hired to report about women's rights and queer rights in Armenia and across Eurasia. The first few days that I'm in Yerevan, I'm hearing that somehow I'm Sorasakan and learning what that means.
It's like a term that people here, mostly anti-gender movement representatives, call activists or people who work in NGOs, call them Sorosakan, which means they got money from
George Soros.
George Soros. We know he's
Hungarian philanthropist. In Georgia, the country, people are protesting
Russian law.
This so-called foreign agent law that's super similar to the Russian one, where NGOs can just be fined or
terminated.
Yeah, just completely dissolved. That's actually happened in Russia, and they're trying to do something similar in Georgia, and the people won't let them. The Soviet Union was its own form of colonization, and
definitely,
I think more people should be talking about that, what we're seeing in Ukraine, even how Georgia, Armenia were treated as Russia's backyard in a way. These are independent countries. They have such rich culture. There's this sense of fulfillment here for me, and that, at least for now, I feel that it's easier to understand myself and accept myself. And recently we were commemorating the 109th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide, and come to find out that actually I am a descendant of more survivors of the Armenian Genocide than I had originally thought. And thinking about generational trauma, how that gene can stay in your DNA, and what do you do with that? How do you honor the people who came before you, who had this body, or you're kind of like made up of all the people before you anyway, and how do you kind of express joy?
Armenian joy.
Yeah, Armenian joy, like in peace and just accepting yourself. And I think that's being in Armenia is a really big part of it. Also, I have to say with this podcast, we are kind of the stereotypical millennial... Are we Gen Z or millennial? Approaching our 30s, okay? And wanting to leave corporate whatever and just start this podcast and have this platform to really connect people and build community. And it's gonna be hard maybe, but we have the tools. We have the passion.
Yeah, I think the world needs to know all these people are in Armenia, are well educated, have very good point of view on a lot of things that's happening around the world.
Yeah.
But their voice is just not heard because they are in Armenia.
I think that's really key, because I've met some incredible people who just are filled with doubt. They say like very remarkable things, Armenians here, and I'm just like, I just had the opportunities that I've had because I was born in the US. Yes, I worked hard, but at the end of the day, that's kind of how I see it. And if there's a way to give back or give people some sort of platform, that's really what I want to be doing here. I mean, it's not to say that you can save everyone or save anything. Like, I think when I got here first, I had this sort of, again, Delulu thinking like, oh, I'm gonna write articles and it's gonna stop ethnic cleansing, it's gonna stop this, and that's, there's a lot of heartbreak.
In Armenia, there is a lot of heartbreak.
There's also a lot of resiliency, and I think this is a word we should talk about as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember you were telling me, like, I don't even know what this word means anymore. And that's so true, because I think you always hear Armenians are so resilient, resilient, resilient. Even I got sick of the word at one point, because it was like, okay, so we're just supposed to keep living through war and ethnic cleansing and without reparations for the Armenian genocide that happened in the 20th century. We're just going to keep repeating this, and we're going to be called resilient for it. But I think there actually is this real resiliency that we have and should be highlighted, where we can still express Armenian joy. We can still speak the language, show up, live here, but also make steps like this. That's really intimidating. Hey, being on camera.
Yeah.
And just try, reach out, make the first step. I think that's a part of resiliency. My reporting also has been a lot about how it's women's rights activists here, queer activists who have been on the front lines providing the humanitarian aid, the psychosocial support for forcibly displaced people of
Also, information, providing information, or just all the meetings and events that's happening that give people a chance to talk to each other are really therapeutic, because you don't have sex education at school. So at some point you maybe gonna be interested in some topics, and at least there are some organizations or activists that can help with that.
But there's also a lot of polarization I've found even within the civil societies. At the same time, we have NGOs that also realize that the funding that they get kind of pigeonholes them into just talking about certain topics, when actually there's a lot more that we can be doing in being able to empower grassroots organizing. There's a lot of difference in opinion about this topic, which I think we'll be talking about more later.
You were mentioning generational trauma, a lot of wisdom that we learn in Armenia. I think that it's also because of generational trauma. The things that people saw here, the struggle that they had, is just teach you a lot of, like, being humble, family-centered, or empathetic with other people, because you just want to be welcoming, be nice to people. And when I had the chance to travel through Armenia, I just got the whole picture that it's really about people and the nature. The connection here is very something that I couldn't feel in Russia, for example. It's not to say that Armenia is like the best country on earth. Every country has its pros and cons. For us, it's here where we find our home, and it feels very nice.
That's it.
That's
for
it.
This episode of Jazve Talks. We hope that you will join us on this journey of our combined, melded experience. Me as American diaspora living in Yerevan now, and Sona as OG Armenian from Sevan. We'll see where this takes us, and we're excited to get out there and interview these incredible people, to drink jazve coffee with us. It's been raining a lot recently. We can show you a video of how Yerevan fares with bad weather. And remember, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and share it with a friend.
Share it with a friend. Sharing is care.